What if your grocery list could think for itself? In this video, I'm going to show you how to build this AI-powered Angular application showcasing the new Angular features that literally just dropped. And yes, it actually works. Look, we all have been there, standing in the grocery store, forgetting half the things that we need to buy, and sometimes buying the things that we already have at home. And last week, I forgot to buy garlic for making dinner again. And I thought, what if AI could solve this problem? But here's the thing, I did not just want to build another grocery application. I wanted to use Angular's latest features, for example, signals, and the new control flow syntax such as @if, @for, and finally integrating Google's Genkit AI to make the application intelligent. And the result? Amazing. An application that suggests items based on what you are already buying. If you had chicken and broccoli, it knows that you might need rice or olive oil. So let me show you exactly what you're going to build. So by the end of this video, you're going to learn these things: Angular 20 and new signals that replace RxJS observables, the new control flow syntax using the and @for, httpResource that nobody's talking about, Google's Genkit AI in just under 20 lines, and deployment to production under 5 minutes, considering you get through the support part. Alright, so let's see what we are building. So here is the app in action. If I go down here and add chicken breast and just submit there, you can see that we are going to have a smart suggestion that automatically tells me broccoli, olive oil, rice, lemon, etc. But not only that, it also tells us based on priority. So here you can see that this one is high priority, this is medium priority, and this is low priority. But what happens if I add pasta here? So I'm going to quickly add one quantity of pasta and let's see what the suggestions come up. You can see that now we have tomato sauce, broccoli, Parmesan cheese, and olive oil. And not only it gives us priority, it also tells us why it's suggesting these things. And do you know the crazy part? This entire system is reactive and uses 0 subscriptions. So no ng on destroy, no memory leaks, just pure Angular signals. And even better, it persists to local storage. So if I refresh the page now, you can see that I still have my items right here. With that said, it's time to build the application. But while we are at it, give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying so far, and subscribe to the channel if you have not already done that. Let's get to it. I'm trying to take a unique approach to this tutorial, and I asked you on different social platforms, and this was the result, that I should be copy pasting a lot of content and you can follow, pause, repeat, and I'm giving you this whole markdown file that you can use yourself and basically just do what I'm doing here. So when you go to this particular repository, which you can find in the description of this video, you are going to see the readme, and here you can go to the tutorial first. Now in here it tells you again what we have discussed so far. For example, what you're going to learn here. What do you need? You first need Node.js 18+. I would just say to install the LTS version, which is the long-term support version, and just go with that. And for this, you need some idea of TypeScript and Angular, but even if you're a beginner, I think it's going to be fine for you. And finally, you do need Google Cloud account to access this AI features, and you may need to set up billing there, even though the plan is really generous and it won't cost you much. So let's first quickly discuss what is the architecture of this particular application. The front end is built with Angular. We are going to have a home page. We are going to have a grocery service which would talk to the local storage. We are also going to have an AI assistant service. So we are going to have 2 services, one for maintaining the items in the grocery store, another one to talk to Genkit or talk to the AI models via Genkit. And since this is a modern Angular application which is able to do server-side rendering, we are going to utilize the server side to basically create some endpoints. So we are going to have the backend, which already is an Express server, to have some endpoints there. Those endpoints would have this smart suggestions endpoint. So you can imagine our front end going to the backend to say, hey, I want these smart suggestions based on what I have in my grocery list so far. And that endpoint goes to Google Cloud and goes to the Gemini 2.0 Flash model, or we could use 2.5 Flash model. It's up to us. But based on that, it's going to recommend us something. And then we take that back to the front end and we display that list. By the end of this video, you're going to have this whole application deployed in production on this hosting provider called Cloudways, which is by DigitalOcean and is also the sponsor of this video. So thank you, Cloudways, for sponsoring this particular video. Now going ahead, just scroll down and you can see how to set up the project. So first of all, we need to make sure that we have the latest Angular CLI version open. So I'm going to go to my terminal and quickly run this command just to ensure that I have the latest Angular version. Once you have that done, you can quickly run ng-version and you're going to see which version of Angular you have. Right now I'm on 20.3.1. Now we can create a new application. we are going to call it Smart Grocery Assistant. We are going to enable routing. So we have some pages in there. We are going to choose CSS for styling, and we are going to enable SSR because we are going to need those API endpoints. So I'm going to go here and quickly start creating this particular application within my projects folder. I'm going to say no to zoneless at the moment, but if you want, you can choose that. For AI tools, I'm going to use Gemini and Claude because that's what I use most of the time. So I'm just going to enable those. And here we have our application being created and we are installing the packages. Great. Now that we have this installed, let's quickly CD into the folder. So we have a Smart Grocery Assistant right here. Now that I'm inside, I can quickly open tmux, and now I can quickly go ahead and say nvim, and I can open my folder. But you can basically do this in VS Code as well. It doesn't really matter. Now that we have this done, we are going to install some packages. So I'm going to copy the required dependencies, which are all of these, and I'm going to go to my terminal. And now you can use another terminal or open a new tab. If you're using VS Code, just open a new terminal or tab, and then what you're going to do is run this particular command in the code repository. So make sure that it's copy pasted as it is. And now we are going to quickly let it run. And I'm going to go back and copy the next command, which is installing the types and making sure that we have no type issues. All right, now that we have the first one done, I'm going to copy paste the second one and let it run as well. And there we go. Now I have this verification check that you should be able to see in package.json Angular core version that is 20.x or something. So if I go here and go to my project here, I can open package.json, and here you can see that all of the versions which are basically starting with Angular have 20.x. Now we are going to set up our environment. So we need to create a new file called .env, and we are going to copy paste all of this. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go here and add a new file. So let's call it .env. And in here, I'm going to just paste this whole code. Now what I want you to do is to change this particular path to just say /service account JSON, because we are going to create that later on in the process and then would just use it as it is. Now, two things that we are going to also look at later is your Google Cloud project and your Google Cloud location or the project's location, but you can leave it as it is for now. Now we are going to go ahead and create some TypeScript interfaces and models. So first you should create a file called grocery.type.ts, and it should be inside source app models. So I'm going to go to my source code here and I'm going to go here. So inside app, I don't have a models directory, so I can quickly go ahead and first create a folder. I'm going to call it model or models, and then I'm going to create a file and I'm going to name it grocery.type.ts, and here is the file now. Now I'm going to quickly copy this and go to my code base and paste it just like this. Now let's see what we have here. This is just us defining what kind of objects would be in our application. For example, how does a grocery item look like? And when we are talking about grocery item, we are actually talking about this particular item right here. What does it really contain? It contains a title, it also contains a category, it also contains a unit, what kind of unit that is, etc. So looking at the code, you can see that each grocery item has an ID, a name, a category, a quantity, a unit as well. Now, when we look at a grocery list, a list is composed of grocery items. So you can see that a grocery list contains items as an array of grocery item. A list also has an ID, a name, its created date, updated date, and if it's completed or not. So once you have bought something, you may mark this grocery list as done and then create a new grocery later on. Then we are also looking at a smart suggestion. What does a smart suggestion look like? A smart suggestion has a priority, has a reason, and we could see that here when we had the smart suggestion. So if I click this generate smart list, I should be able to see that. And here you can see that each smart suggestion has a priority, it has a reason for why that is, and it also has information about the item as well. And that's why you see here that we have the reason, we have the priority, and we have the item itself, which is a grocery item. So this smart suggestion is a suggestion related to a particular item. That's why it's referencing it. Now going forward, we have an enum here, and an enum is essentially some possibilities for a variable. So here we are saying that a grocery category can only be one of these. We could have a grocery of category dairy or meat or pantry or beverages. So what's gonna come here in the category will be one of these values. That's what an enum means in TypeScript. And finally, we have an interface for creating a grocery list request. When we are trying to create a new list, what would it contain? Great, let's move forward. Now we're going to create some constants as well. So I'm going to create a new file under constants folder, and I'm going to call this unit.ts or units.ts. So let's go to the folder here. We are going to first create a folder. So we are going to say constants, and in here, I'm going to name it units.ts. So now you can see that inside the app folder, we have constants and units.ts right here. Now I'm going to copy this and I'm going to go back and quickly paste it as well. Now here we have some interfaces, some constants, etc. For example, we have unit options. For example, if I'm buying a pasta, what does it really mean? Am I buying buying a piece of pasta, a pound of pasta, a cup of pasta, etc. So this is going to be the unit type, so to say. And each unit type is of type this interface, which is unit option. So it has a value, a label, which is defined right here. Then I'm also having this function called suggest unit for item, which means that it's going to look at the item's name. For example, if it's meat, then it's going to see right here in this condition, if it's contain meats, then it's going to suggest that it should be pounds or kilograms, if you will. Similarly, if it's milk, then it's going to be cups or boxes, whatever. So here is a function that you can modify based on your own need, or you can use AI for that matter later on as well. But I'm keeping this simple for now. Now let's move forward. Now we are going to create a new grocery service with Angular 20 signals. So we need to create a new service here. So I'm going to go to my code base now, and I'm going to go to the second tab where I was installing all the packages, and now I can quickly run ng generate service services grocery. Now that we have this created, let's go back to the code here, and inside here you can see inside apps we do have now the services folder, and we have grocery.ts right here. Now what I want you to do is to replace this whole thing. So I'm going to copy this code, I'm going to go here and paste this and replace this. Now you can see here that we have almost everything exactly the same. We are importing the grocery item and grocery list, and we have some things that are happening right here. Now I want your attention right here with two different things. We have a current list variable and a list variable right here, and it's a very common practice to have a private variable and then exposing a public variable as read only, so nobody or no component can modify this particular variable directly. If we need to change data, we have to update this current list manually using usually a function. So if I go down here, you can see that we have add item to current list, which adds an item to the current list. So it gets the current list, which is a private variable, and then it updates this particular variable itself. So no component from outside can update this list directly. Everyone has to update this signal, which in turn would update this list, which in turn would re-render the components automatically. So that's what we are doing here. So here, when you add an item to list, it takes the item and then it essentially goes ahead and updates that particular item. Similarly, if you remove an item from the current list, then it takes the item ID, it tries to find that item and essentially then removes that item from the list. So you can read this code, you can pause it, you can read it yourself, and you can also read it from the markdown file itself to understand what's going on. Then we have a function that's called load from storage. This gets the item from the saved local storage. When I showed you the application, I showed you that even after refreshing, I can still have these items shown here, and that is because they are saved in the local storage. And you can check that by right clicking here, going to inspect, and then going to application, and in here you can go to local storage, and in here you can see grocery current list. If you look at that, you will find this whole grocery list, which has an ID, has is complete, and then in the items it shows exactly these two things. We have chicken breast right here, and we can also see chicken breast right here. Then we also can see pasta here as well. So we have a function of loading this information from storage and setting it to the current list. As soon as we set this to current list, this particular list variable is automatically updated and the components will render the right value. Now what about saving to storage? So we have a function for that as well. Whenever we add an item to the list or remove an item from our grocery list, it essentially calls this save to storage function, which gets the current list and essentially saves that to local storage using local storage.set item. And finally, we have a function for generating the ID of the items that we are creating or the grocery list itself. One more function that I've not talked about is creating a new list. If the application does not already have a list, it's going to create a new list. So we have this current list set to this new list, because by default, as you see right here, it is set to null. So when the application tries to add an item to a list, there has to be a list already so the items can be added to that. So that's why this function is going to be called at some point. Great, let's move forward. If I go down now, the next step is to create this AI assistant service. So I'm going to quickly copy this code from here, and I'm going to go to my new tab, and here I'm going to say ng generate service services / AI grocery assistant. So let's create this service. And now if I go to services, I can quickly see that we have this grocery service, and I'm going to save all the files that we have written so far. So if I go to AI grocery assistant service, this is how it looks. So now I'm going to copy this code from here, go back to my code base and replace all of it with this. Now let's have a look at this AI assistant service or AI grocery assistant. In here, you can see that we do use an API request signal, and we also create this HTTP resource, which is pretty hot in Angular. It's a new feature. It allows you to create an HTTP resource that you can call again and again and reload the information. So the way I'm structuring this particular service is that you have an API request signal. Whenever you change the parameters of this API API request, this HTTP resource will re-trigger, so it will get the new data. A quick example for that is if I remove any item from here, it changes the API parameters, and that's why we get new smart suggestions. For example, if I remove chicken breast from here, you can see automatically there is a network call that goes for smart suggestions, and in the payload you can essentially see what we send. So we basically send the items which have been changed. So now instead of 2 items we have 1. If I add the chicken breast again, and as soon as I submit it, you can see that we send another call, and this is based on the HTTP resource and the API params that keeps getting changed. So how does this work really? We need to be able to update API request every now and then. Now that I think about my implementation, I think that this effect would not really be required, but we'll see. Now moving forward, we also have some things here. We have suggestions. So whenever this API call is made, we of course get some data back, and we can see the data right here in preview. So these are the suggestions that are coming from AI. So we have the priority, we have the item here as well. For example, tomato sauce that we can see right here. So all these items that we get, we need to be able to access those items from the service to here the components, and we get them via this computed property, which is part of the signals API. So this computed property essentially looks at this particular HTTP resource, which is the smart suggestion resource, and takes out its value. So it takes out the value. If the value doesn't exist, it returns an empty array. If the value exists, which means that we have smart suggestions, then it just returns that from here. And thus we have a simple suggestions variable, which is a signal, and this can be accessed outside of this AI service by any component or any UI that wants to show suggestions, just has to refer to this one. Similarly, we have some more variables. For example, is loading, is error. Now I know you might be thinking, yeah, we could just expose this particular variable outside and it could be used, but I like the possibility of just having this here. So I can just say AI grocery assistant dot is loading. Is the assistant loading, or if it has error, etc, etc. So I like this approach a bit more instead of exposing this resource outside. Similarly, we do have some functions. For example, if I want to generate smart suggestions, all I need to do is come here, call this function, and set my new set of items. Whether I add an item to the grocery list or remove, I'm just gonna pass the latest items right here and set them as the API request. As soon as I do it, since this is HTTP resource, it's already going to trigger it automatically because I'm using this signal inside. So if I change the signal, it should automatically trigger. So I should not even be needing this at all. And I'm going to comment it for now, and we are going to see if it still works by the end of this tutorial. Well, finally, we have a function that just sets this API request to null, and it's for clearing all the suggestions for us. Now let's go to the next step, which is the data flow deep dive. So I want to quickly show you how the whole data is working in this particular application. And we are going to look at from the time the application gets opened the first time to the whole flow. So first, the user clicks generate a smart list. For example, if I just refresh the application, now I don't really have a smart list. So first I click here, generate smart list, and this gets triggered in the home component. Now this home component calls a function of grocery list called create new list that we saw earlier. This function essentially creates a new list, sets it, and then saves to local storage. Now when we scroll down, you can see this data flow deep dive. I'm going to skip it because we have not implemented everything, so this won't make sense at the moment. However, this data transformation is important. So let's take an example. If the user adds 2 items to the list, let's say chicken and broccoli, this would make an HTTP request, and this HTTP request would take these 2 items within the API call. Then it would go towards the Genkit, and it would pass that information to Genkit, which means to the AI model. The AI model will process this on Vertex AI, which is on Google Cloud. It would give us back an array of suggestions. The array of suggestions from the AI, which is Vertex AI, comes back to our server response, and the server response essentially gets displayed on the card. So once the server response comes to the front end, it essentially displays those. Now we're going to go ahead and implement the Genkit. So we're going to create a new file called index.ts inside the Genkit folder. So let me quickly copy this now, and this is supposed to be inside source. So I'm going to go to source and basically add this, and now you can see that we have this file. So I'm going to go here. Now I'm going to copy all of this and I'm going to paste it right here. Let's quickly have a look at what's happening right here. We're using the Genkit package, and we're using something called Zod. Genkit is what we use to interact with AI. Zod is how we define how the data should look. So what should come back from the AI response, and also what we are sending to AI. So we can define those schemas. Right here you can see that we start the Genkit with a plugin called Vertex AI. So we are saying that we are going to use the Genkit or the Gemini models on Vertex AI, which is cloud. So we are going to use that on Google Cloud. out. Then we are saying that the output that we need as suggestions from the AI model looks like this. It has to be an object that comes back that should have suggestions as an array. And in the suggestion, we have each object having a name, category, reason, priority, quantity, and a unit. So you can define it using Zot. Now you can see that we are defining the flow here, and this is how you use Genkit. So this is purely Genkit magic. So we use Genkit to create an AI instance using Genkit and Vertex AI. With that AI instance, we define a flow. We're calling it simple suggestions flow, in which we are going to provide an input. So what do we send to AI? We just send an array of items. In here, we define that we are going to send an array of string, and this string or this array of string essentially is an array of grocery items. This is important. The describe here is going to tell AI what kind of information are we passing from here, or what are these things? What is this chicken breast, broccoli, or rice, olive oil? So here we are mentioning that these are grocery items. Then we are also telling it to use this output schema. So when AI gives us back suggestions, it would be exactly in this format, an object containing suggestions array. And then what do? We essentially define the function. So whenever this flow is going to be triggered or called, we first need an input. This input is of type items of a string, and this is defined by this input schema right here. And here I'm going to pass an items array or an array of strings. So here I'm then defining the prompt. I'm saying you're a grocery shopping assistant. I have these items in my shopping list, and then I'm just concatenating all my items just in a single string. And then I'm saying, please suggest 3 to 5 additional grocery items that would complement the list. For each suggestion, provide the name, the category, the reason, and the priority. We already have the output schema here, so we don't really need to define this as much, but it's really good if you do. Finally, I'm saying focus on practical, commonly purchased items that make sense with the current list, so it should be related. And then once we have this prompt generated, we go ahead and we say AI.generate. So we are using the model Vertex AI Gemini 2.0 Flash. As I said, you can use 2.5 Flash as well. So here we are taking the output of this whole execution. So we provide all of this to the AI, or we basically call this function with all of these configuration. We give the model, we give this prompt that we have generated above, we tell it how the output schema should look like, and then once we have the response back, we extract out the output from it. This output should contain suggestions. So here you can see that we are returning the whole output object, which should be an object that contains suggestions array. If we get output, then we just return the output. Otherwise, we create our own object of suggestions array. So you can see that the outputs schema or the contract is essentially the same. So output is also an object of suggestions array. This is also an object of suggestions array. And if something goes wrong, we just send back an empty array as it is. Great. Now that we have understood this, let's create an Express server with API endpoints. So here, since we already have our server TS, I'm just going to copy this and replace that. So I'm going to go to my code and I'm going to go to server TS. Now here, by default, what you will see is the standard Angular server-side rendering. So here you have the app, which is an Express application. We have the Angular app, which is the Node app engine. If you go a bit down here, you can see the Express static definition here. Then you can see how the Angular app is bound with the Express.js application. So it does the server-side rendering, so to say. And then you can also see some magic being done here where the app's server starts right here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace all of it because we just add a few things here and there. So I'm going to copy paste this, and now you can see that we have a bunch of more things here. For example, we are using cors, we are using .env, we are also using some functions from Genkit here. We are also importing the type here. So what do we do here? We first enable this .env config so we can fetch the environment variables that we just created right here. Then we initialize the Genkit. So we define these flows, or this basically just does a console log. So when we are importing the file, it just does this right here. But since we import the file, all of this is triggered. So our Genkit is initialized, so to say. Then we also enable cors so we can make it work. And then we add an endpoint, which is API smart suggestions. This is what our front end will call to get suggestions. This endpoint is the middleman, so to say. The front end calls this endpoint. This endpoint calls Genkit, which basically calls Vertex AI or the Gemini 2.0 Flash model. So what happens here? The front end sends items array. We get that from the request body. So the server says, okay, front end, what did you send in the request body? The request body contains items. So we take out those items. Then we check if it's an array or if the items is a valid array, so to say. If not, then we just throw back an invalid items array. If we get the items, all we need is the name of the item or each item. So we basically concat them. We get the item names here, and then we call the simple suggestion flow with the item names. So you can see here here that we are using an object containing an items array, which is just the item names, which is a string of item names. And as I showed you before, this is exactly what the Genkit says. So here you can see that the input schema is just an items array of strings. So a Z array of Z string. That's pretty much it. So that's exactly what we call right here. And finally, when we get the result back, what does this result look like? Well, when you go to the Genkit, you are going to see that this result is the output, and the output is an object of suggestions array. So an object that has the suggestions array. And if you see the result here, it should be an object containing the suggestions array. So that's why we do result.suggestions, and we are basically mapping it to creating this thing right here. So what do we do when we pass the suggestions back to the front end? We make it like this. We make it like item, and the item contains everything right here, then a reason, and then a priority. Why do we do this? If you remember in the beginning, when we created the types, which were inside models, grocery type right here, this is how the smart suggestion look like. It has a reason, it has a priority, and it has the whole item object. That is exactly what we are looking at. So when we go to the server TS, you can see that we have a reason, we have a priority, and we have the whole item object just like this. So we basically take the suggestions from Vertex AI or Gemini 2.0 Flash. We basically loop over it, map it, and we create the suggestions array that we send back as suggestions. And that is exactly what we see here in the response. So here you can see that we have an array of items or smart suggestions, and each smart suggestion is having a reason, having a priority, and having an item. Cool. Now let's have a look at what did we change more. I don't think anything else, and that's pretty much it. All right, so if I go down now, you can see this API request response flow. I think this is an amazing diagram for you to understand how the whole flow works, but I just explained it, so I don't think we need to go too deep into it in this video. However, this is a simplified version, so I'm gonna explain this a bit. The front end sends a request to the backend using the items which are in the grocery list. The backend then just takes the name out of it and sends it to Genkit. So it uses just the names during the prompt generation, sends to Vertex AI. The Vertex AI sends back a response with the smart suggestions. The smart suggestions are then taken out by the server, and the server essentially formats that based on the types that we have provided. So it essentially makes it possible to convert that data to something that the front end can use, and then it sends it back as the HTTP JSON response. Once that's done, the HTTP resource in the front end gets the value updated, and then the computed suggestions get updated automatically, and then the templates are rendered. Great. There is also a nice diagram that I created about the error flow. So what happens when there is an error? So let's say there was an HTTP request. If the server is not available, it's a network error and the front end throws an error. If the server is available and it's a valid request, then it moves forward. Otherwise, it just says 400 byte request and we should see an error on the front end. If the server has a valid request and if the AI service is available, then it moves forward. Otherwise, it has an AI service error and it then just does a fallback suggestion or just an empty array. In which case, the front end would not throw an error. It would just show success or would just show nothing at all with no suggestions. If the AI service is available and the AI response is valid, then it shows the success response and essentially sends back the smart suggestions. Otherwise, it's going to throw an AI format error, in which case it will still fall back to suggestions or an empty array, in which case the UI will show nothing and would not show an error in this case. Now that we have this, let's actually move to the front end or actually building the components. So we are going to create a routes.cs file with the following. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to go quickly inside app, and inside the app we have app.routes.ts. So I'm going to select all of it and replace it with this. So here we should have a home page created, which we don't have at the moment. But the idea is that on the default route, we are going to show the home page just like this. Now we can actually go down a bit and see how to create the home component. So I'm going to quickly go ahead and copy this whole command. I'm going to go to my next tab and here I'm going to run this whole command. So here we're generating the home page. Now you can see that we don't have the error anymore. Good. If we scroll a bit above now where we had the routes here, the next step is to update the app config to use the HTTP client because we are going to use HTTP resource and also doing it using provide HTTP client. So I'm just going to copy this now and we're going to go to the app config TS right here and we're going to add a new line here. We're going to say provide HTTP client and we are going to also use something called with fetch just like this, and we're just going to save this. Now we are going to just double check if the index.html looks like this. If not, we are going to replace this. So I'm going to go to my code here and I'm going to go to index.html. I think it looks more or less the same, just the smart grocery assistant looks combined. So I'm gonna replace that and now it just says smart grocery assistant. Nothing else really change that much. Now we are also going to update the app HTML at this point, and I'm going to add a header and main and footer and whatnot. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. I'm going to go to app HTML, which is this huge file that comes with Angular by default. And if you come here, you're going to see that at the end we have this router outlet. So I'm going to select actually everything, and I'm going to paste this. And now you will see that we have this header right here. Then we have the main containing the router outlet, and then we have the footer right here. So I'm going to save this file as well. Now we are going to update the app.ts, and the reason primarily is using the router outlet, router link, and router link active because of some styles that we have. So I'm just going to copy this now, go to my app.ts, and here I'm going to just replace all of this and save this. Now if we scroll down, we already have created the home component, but I have to update the home TS file. So I'm going to quickly copy this. I'm going to go to the home component inside pages, home, and here we have home TS. So I'm going to replace all of this basically. Now in here, you will see that we have the template within the home component right here. We are using the AI grocery assistant service. We're also using some types here as well. So if I go down here, you're going to see that we are using the AI assistant service right here. We are fetching the suggestions, is loading error from the service as I explained before. And then you can see we have this function called test AI, which basically uses some dummy items and then passes it to generate smart suggestions. And here we have a problem. The vegetables are not a category. So I'm going to do a dot here, and we can rather use snacks right here. And I'm going to say save. Now the question that we have is, does it really work? Well, the reality is that whatever I've been showing you so far is from the finished application. We haven't even run our new Angular application once, and we should probably do that. So I'm going to stop my server right now, and if I refresh now, we don't have anything running on localhost 4200. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to just run npm start, which will run ngserve for us, and we are going to see if there are any errors or not. Now luckily, and I'm rarely this lucky, that everything seems to be working right now. And now if I go to the browser and run this, I know it's not really going to look pretty. Yeah, as you can see. So here you can see that if I click test AI suggestion, there is a network call going to the backend. However, we get back an empty array. Now the reality is that we never go to Google Cloud so far. That's why we get an empty array back. But you can see still the process works. However, if I go to my terminal, you can see right here that we have some issues. And the issue as expected is that we don't have any authentication done for Genkit, for Google Auth. And that's why we are missing it. So we need to go create a project to Google Cloud. We need to also generate a service account, and then things should be working. Now there are multiple ways of doing this, but I think I'm going to show you the easiest way of doing it yourself. And the process that I want to show you does not really include installing Google Cloud CLI, logging in with your default credentials, or setting application default. That could be done, but I want to show you what we need to go to production and would also work on your local as well. So first of all, you need to go to console.cloud.google.com. Once you go there, you're going to create a project. So you can click here, you can create a new project. Once you do so, you're going to go and open your project, and then you're going to go to something called credentials inside APIs and services. So go to the left menu or try searching right here. You can say credentials, and you can see right here. Once you go here, you need to create new service account. So what you're going to do is, you can see that I already have some service accounts right here. So you're going to create credentials, and you're going to say service account right here. Now I'm going to give this the name Cloudways, and here I can say NGAI app, and I'm going to quickly create and continue, and I'm going to select the role, which is Vertex AI user. This is important. So your application has access to the Vertex AI, which means that it would be able to interact with these Gemini models. That's really important. And if you look at the documentation, you're going to see the same thing here. Now in here, you also get some information about the G-Cloud Auth application default login approach as well, but I'm showing you exactly a shortcut that you can follow. So if I go back here, I can quickly say done. And now what you can do is you can try to find the name here, but since you are creating it for the first time, I assume you only have one there. But here is mine, CWNGAI app. So I'm going to quickly click this, and then what you need to do is create a key for this service account. So go to keys, and in here say add a key. You can say create new, and then you can choose JSON right here. Quickly create the key here, and then you're going to see that this should be downloadable. So I'm going to quickly download this right here. And once you have downloaded it, you can quickly copy paste it to the correct folder right here. And I'm going going to rename it as we discussed before to just service account JSON. So I'm going to say service-account.json. Now, of course, this is important that you don't really commit this to your GitHub or GitLab, wherever someone can see that. So that's not a good idea. So make sure that you go ahead, and here you can see my service account JSON. So I can quickly go ahead and add these two things into my git ignore. So I can quickly go here and say my .env is going to be ignored and my service account JSON is also going to be ignored. So this is important. Now you can see that we have these two ignored. You should also be able to see that in the env, it points to the right name. So this has to be exactly the same name. And then the other variables that the project needs is basically the name of the project and then where you have this deployed, so to say. And then you can go to your G-Cloud project here and just change this to IO Connect Berlin, which is my project name, but you can choose basically what is yours. Now that we have this, I'm going to quickly go ahead and restart the server. So I'm quickly going to do npm start again. Now if I go back to my application, which is running right here, refresh now and try to quickly run test AI suggestions, you should be able to see that it takes a bit more time now and we have these suggestions now. Yay! So our front end, which is ugly at the moment, still is able to get smart suggestions based on the queries that we have provided, which are these items, and we get back all these suggestions, which are pretty nice. Yay! Now we can move things a bit faster. So this was the last thing that we did, which was quick AI test setup. If we scroll a bit down, we can now see update the home component TypeScript. So I'm going to update a few things here, which will implement the new features here. So I'm going to quickly go to my source code here and I'm going to go to source home TS right here. And I'm going to select everything and I'm going to replace this. Now this file is huge, so I'm not going to go through everything, but I can tell you the main stuff right here. First of all, we have a lot of variables here. Is generating list. We are also looking at is loading AI suggestions. So showing those spinners, etc. Do we have error? Do we have AI suggestions available? Similarly, should we show suggestions or not? Which means that if we have suggestions, then we show the suggestions block. Otherwise we don't. Similarly, we have functions for if we are adding a new item, what's its name? What is the quantity? What is the unit? Similarly, if we are adding a new item, then we have a signal for that as well. One of the important things that we discussed when we were looking at the grocery was that we had a function called create new list. We did not see so far when this is called, but if you go to home TS, you're going to see that we do have this on generate grocery list, which tries to see if there is no list, then it generates one for us. And that is where this is done the first time. And this is going to do it before trying to add an item, so to say. Now we have functions in the home component like add suggestions to list. We also have remove item from list. We have add manual item, which we used to add item manually by using the form. Similarly, refreshing the suggestion if we need to do it. So whenever we add an item, we refresh the suggestion. Whenever we remove an item, we refresh the suggestion. You can see it right here. So this function is add manual item and then it refreshes the suggestion right here. If you add a suggestion, which is a smart suggestion to my grocery list, then we refresh the suggestions again, which is happening right here. And when we generate a smart list the first time, even we refresh the suggestions as well. Then we do have some emojis as well, some icons as well right here. We have some priority classes, which are the CSS classes. And we saw them earlier when we were looking at the smart suggestions. Some items had red, some had orange. Then we also have some helper functions. For example, if I'm trying to add an item, it automatically tries to guess its category based on the enum that we have. So yeah, we have this simple home component. Not so simple, but it's fairly simple regardless. And then once we have the TS file done, let's go ahead, update the HTML as well. So I'm going to quickly scroll down and here is our update home component template. So I'm going to quickly copy this. I'm going to go to the home HTML, which just says home works at the moment. So I'm going to save this and I'm going to go down and hopefully find the CSS as well. So styling the application. So I'm going to quickly copy this now. I'm going to go to home CSS and just paste it right here. So now if I refresh the application, this is how it looks still, which means some file has not been saved. So I'm going to save all the files, go back to my browser and it just crashed. Of course, I'm going to go to my terminal and yeah, this is just a bundle failing. So I'm going to quickly restart the application. You might have to do it sometimes. And then if I refresh this now, there you go. This is essentially first theme that I have for this application, but the one that we saw at the beginning of this video is a bit different. So I'm going to use that. So if you scroll a bit down, you're going to see that this is a style 2 that you want to use. So quickly copy this now, go back back to your code and replace the whole file with style2. Save this. And now if I go to my application, we're going to see the updated one. So this is still the old one. And if I refresh now, there you go. Now you see the updated one where we have title, we have the kind here or the units right here. So this looks like what we wanted. However, the header and the footer, they're just ugly. Now to fix the header and footer, we are going to go to the documentation, and I just realized that I've not added any styles for app.css, which I'm going to do. So you're going to be able to find it right here. But when you do, you're going to go to app.css here and you're going to paste it, and it should look something like this. So we do have the host, app header, navbar, nav brand, etc. So you're going to save this now. And now if I go back to my browser, you can see that this is the header, which looks much nicer. And if I scroll down, you can see the footer as well is nicer. And you know what's interesting? That's actually it. The tutorial actually should be working now. So if I go here, I could actually remove all of this, and you can see that we have the smart suggestions coming in still. If I go to the network tab, you can also see that if I try to add too many things at once or try to remove too many things at once, we actually cancel the previous request. For example, if I say chicken right here, and let me also write broccoli, so I can copy paste really quick. And if I'm going to go open the console as well, so I'm going to quickly add this and quickly add this as well. Wasn't as fast. Now I'm going to try removing both things at the same time. So click, and you can see that the previous one is cancelled, and always the latest one is going to be sent, and we are going to get the suggestions. Good. So you can see that everything works, and I can also add items from the suggestions to the list. For example, what happens if I add 2 unit of eggs? So if I add this, you can see that it gets added right here, and we send a new smart suggestion list. Similarly, I could say butter, and if I add to list, you can see that this goes again. Super nice. What happens if I do 3 of those? And you can see that we are getting the smart suggestions as well. As I mentioned, when looking at this AI grocery service file, we don't really need the effect right here. So I'm going to remove that from the tutorial as well, and I'm going to add the app CSS code there as well. But to be honest, the whole thing is working. You do have local storage, saving and retrieving that information. You have the smart list that's talking to Vertex AI using the Gemini 2.0 Flash model to get smart suggestions that you can work with. And all we need to do is just to deploy this to Cloudways. So let's quickly do that. Go to the documentation, and you're going to find the part where it says deploying to Cloudways. This is a really neat feature in GitHub Markdown that I did not know before, but you can quickly jump here and sign up from Cloudways from here. When you do so, it also is going to help the channel grow as well, because this is an affiliate link. But I would encourage you to try it out if you really want to sign up for Cloudways anyways. So when you go to Cloudways, you can create a new server. So when you go to Cloudways just like this, you're going to see that from the left menu, we have this server, and then you can click add a new server. Once you do so, you're going to select the application. You're going to select PHP. For this particular example, you can name it whatever. For example, smart groceries app. And similarly, you can just give this the name server, and then you can select a project. You can also create a new project if you don't already have one. What I chose for my example is DigitalOcean with basic, with standard, and then switching to 1 gigabyte. If you're just testing things out, I think this is good enough for you. We are selecting PHP here, but we are able to work with Node.js right there. So what you're going to do is you're going to quickly go ahead and select 1 gigabyte. You can select any place. I selected Frankfurt because I am in Europe. So I just selected this one, and you can see here that this says $11 monthly, and then you should be able to see this launch now button as well. Once you start creating the server, it's going to take 7 minutes to work with that. In the meantime, what I want you to do is to reach out to the support. So you go here and you try to create a new message. I already did that for my server, because one thing that you need to do is to enable something called mod proxy. And the way to enable that is just going to them and then explaining to them that you have a server that you need mod proxy to be enabled for. So here you can see that I've told them that I'm going to create a server now and I want mod proxy to be turned on. Essentially, the AI sent a response, and then I just said connect me with an agent. Then a particular person joined in, and then basically after a while the mod proxy was enabled, and that's pretty much it. It was a really quick chat. Once you have that done, then we can do the next steps. So what you're going to look at here is that once you have that, you will have a server and then you will have an app. So you click the app and you go to the application itself by clicking here. And in here, you can see the access details. This is the important part right here. Now, this is your production URL. So if you click that, you're going to see that this looks like this, but we are going to have our Angular application right here. Then it has a database. It has a database name, a username, and a password. And then I want you to focus on this deployment via Git part. So here we are supposed to generate an SSH key to connect to our GitHub, which is really important. And you can see the same examples right here. In step 4, this is the Git integration. So in Cloudways, we need to go to this particular section. Then we are going to see the SSH key and we are going to copy it. So I'm going to go here and click generate SSH keys. And now you can see that it asks me to view the SSH keys. So I'm going to quickly copy this. You should also be able to download the SSH key in case you forget about it. Once done, you should go to your GitHub, click your profile, click settings. Then you need to go to SSH and GPG keys. And then you need to click new SSH key. Here you can give this a title. For example, I can say CW or Cloudways NGAI app. And here I'm going to paste the key. Finally, click the add SSH key right here. And now you can see that our SSH key here is added. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to push my code. So I'm quickly going to go and create a new repository. Our project's name is Smart Grocery Assistant. So I'm going to quickly go here and say Smart Grocery Assistant. I'm going to give the description that this is Angular and AI based Smart Grocery Assistant. So I've mentioned the description here now, and I can quickly create the repository. And I'm going to go to my terminal right here. I'm going to stop the server, clear, do a quick git status. I can see that I don't have the env file or the service account JSON being here. So I can quickly say git add, git commit, and I can just say initial commit. And now I'm going to quickly copy this line, which is git remote add origin. So I'm going to copy this, come back here, paste this. And now you can see that I've added a remote origin, which is my GitHub. So here I can say git push u origin main. So git push -u origin main. And this is going to push this particular code to our GitHub. If I go back to my GitHub and just refresh, I should be able to see all my code right here. So no env file, no service account JSON, everything is right here. Now that we have this, we need to pull this to Cloudways. And how do we do that? We're going to add the git remote address here as well. So I'm going to go here and click here and make sure that you have the SSH one right here and you copy this. Then you go back to Cloudways and paste this right here, click authenticate. So now this Cloudways platform is using the SSH keys that we just added to GitHub, and it was able to authenticate with that. Really nice. And now I can click here and can see that we have the main branch. So I'm going to click main, and now I'm going to say start deployment. Now, even before I do so, I can essentially go to access details, open this in a new tab, and I can show you how to access our server. So if you go to the server itself and click here and then the server itself, you can see the master credentials. Now this is the IP and this is the username. So I'm going to copy the username first. I'm going to go to my console here and I'm going to say SSH, and then I'm going to give this the username @ and I'm going to copy the IP now, this, and I'm going to go back and paste it right here. When I hit enter, you will see that this is going to ask me first time if I want to add the fingerprint. I'm going to say yes, and then I'm going to give it the password. So it's asking me for a password now. So I can go here and I'm going to quickly go ahead and copy this password from here, and now I can come back and quickly paste it right here. Now if I hit enter, this is going to allow me to log into that particular machine. So we have a Linux machine that I'm currently using. So we have a Linux machine on Cloudways given by DigitalOcean, and now I have access to it. Now I can do, for example, clear ls. I can see what folders are there in that computer on the cloud. So I'm literally on the cloud, and I can cd into applications, and here I can see this name here, which is the name of my application. How do I know? Notice this name. And then if I go back here, you should be able to see that if I go back to my application itself, you're going to see that the access details would contain exactly the same thing. This is the database name, which is essentially the application name. So this name is supposed to be the same as this one. So what happened here is that first I was right here, then I could go into cd applications, and then we have just this folder. When we go inside there, we're going to see that we have this public HTML folder and we don't have a Git folder yet. If I do cd public HTML, you're going to see that we have just this index.php. Now what do we want to do here? We want to pull our code from GitHub to this server, and the way Cloudways does it is via deployment via Git. So if I go here, we have already authenticated, we have already given it the Git remote address, and we just need to select a branch and then say start deployment. What this will do is it will not only pull the information in public HTML, it would also create a Git folder right here, which it already did now. So here you can see Git repo. So Cloudways has access to my Git repo. And if I do public HTML again, and if I do ls here, you can see all my files here, or maybe they're being downloaded. So now it has Angular JSON, package log JSON, public, source, all of those things, and the index PHP that was there before. So here you can see already that previously it only had this. Now it has all of those things. Nice. So we have successfully pulled our code to Cloudways. What's next? Make sure that you have the mod proxy enabled by now so we can do the next step. The next step is for us to work with Node.js there. And right now the Node.js version that's right here is a bit old. So if I do node -- version, you're going to see that this is 20.5.1, while the LTS version is 22 or 23. I can't really remember, but we need the latest. So for that, if you look at the documentation in Markdown, you need to do this. We are going to use nvm and we are going to install the LTS version. So quickly copy this command, go to your server, and it doesn't matter really which folder you are in. You can just run the command just like this, and you can see that it installs nvm right here. Great. Now that nvm is installed, I can restart my server or restart my terminal, or just run these commands to be able to use nvm right now. So if I just run nvm, you're gonna see that it doesn't really work. But if I copy this and paste this right here and hit enter, now if I run nvm, you can see that nvm works for us. One of the things that you could also do is source bash rc, but that means that the bash rc should have this information. So if you do nano.bash rc, you should be able to see somewhere that it has nvm. And to be honest, I don't really see that anywhere right here, which means that what you should do is basically just copy what I copied before, which is this particular line. So I'm going to quickly copy this, and then you can use vim or nano, doesn't really matter. I'm going to use vim, open bash rc, and then just go all the way down or try to find nvm. So there's no nvm here. So I'm just going to go all the way down and then quickly add it at the end right here. So I'm going to quickly save this now, but it seems like it doesn't allow me to do so. So I may have to use sudo here. Now it's asking me for password again. So I'm going to quickly go here and copy the password from here. I'm going to paste it, and it seems like I can't really do it, which is a bummer. So I would have to somehow use nvm later on as well, which is fine, I think. So let's move to the next step. I want to install the LTS. So I'm going to quickly copy this, and I'm going to quickly paste it like this. So you can see that the latest version or the LTS version is 22.19. Good. All right. So now you can see that there was a default alias created. So I can use the latest Node version. So if I do node -- version now, it should show this exact one, and you can see it right here. Good. Now I'm going to go back and copy this for installing PM2. So let's quickly install that. And we're installing PM2 because we want our server to restart automatically if it crashes for some reason. Now, if I just do PM2 list, it should be able to say that the daemon is started now and we have PM2 running. Great. Now we have to create some configuration for PM2 and a deployment script as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this code, and we need to create an ecosystem config.js in our source code. So I'm going to go to my source code, and I know I'm going a bit fast, but you can always pause and see what I'm doing, and you can follow the step by step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and quickly create an ecosystem.config.js, and I'm going to copy this code, quickly paste it right here, and this is what we are looking at. This is a file that we are going to give to PM2 so it can start the Node.js server or the Angular server using server-side rendering. I'm also generating a variable here or passing a variable called PM2 so our Angular application can run on this Linux server using PM2. So all of this is necessary. Now we need to go to the server configuration to use this PM2 variable, and here you can see that we need to add just this condition to say listen to the server or start the server if we have this being run or we have PM2 variable provided. So I'm quickly going to copy this, and I'm going to go to my server TS, which is inside source. So I'm going to go here, and about all the way at the bottom here, I need to just add this condition. There we go. So I'm going to save all the files, and now I need to create a deployment script. So I'm going to quickly copy this and create a deploy sh file. So I'm going to say deploy.sh, and now I can quickly paste this, and let me quickly tell you what this does. The idea for us is to just push the code via Git, pull it on Cloudways, and just run this deploy script. So what would happen is that it would first run npm install. So it would install the latest dependencies. It would build the Angular application. It would then copy the environment file and the service account file. Right now, both of these files are in my machine locally in my computer, but they're not on the cloud. It's not on Cloudways. So I first have to copy paste them there because Git doesn't have them. I'm not pushing to GitHub. That's why it's not pulling to Cloudways. So I have to manually copy paste by SSHing into the server, and and putting the content in there. And then when I run the deploy script, it's going to copy the env, copy the service account JSON to the dist folder. So when I run, or when this is run with npm run build, it's going to generate the Angular application and then afterwards copy these two files there. So when we run the server, it already has the environment file, it already has the service account file. Then after copying this, before running the server, it stops existing processes. So let's say my server was already running. So this would first stop the server, delete the server, and then it would start the server again using this ecosystem config.js, which we just added right here, which tells it to go into the distribution folder where we have our Angular built now and just start the server mjs. And finally, it gives us the status of if our server has started or not. Good. So I'm just going to quickly save this file. And now if we move forward, we just need to make sure that this is executable. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to add a new tab. And in here, I'm going to make sure that it has the permission. So I've run this command for deploy sh. And now what we need to do is to copy paste the environment variable and the service account JSON. So first I'm going to go to env. I'm going to quickly copy all of this and I'm going to go to my server. This is my Cloudways server. In here, I'm just going to say vim.env and here I'm going to paste the code as it is. Oh, it looks like it didn't copy all of it. So let's quickly copy all of it. I'm going to quickly copy this and I'm going to paste it just like this. So now you can see that we have the project here, we have the location, and we have the service account JSON path right here. Now we need to create the service account JSON. So I'm going to quickly say vim service account.json, and you can use nano as well. If you want to do control V or control C control V or command C command V, then nano is a bit better one. If you know vim key bindings, then just use vim. So I'm going to go to my code and I'm going to copy the content of my service account JSON to there. Now I'm going to go here, I'm going to paste it right here. All right, now I have saved the file as well, and we have the env and the service account JSON. Good. Now that we have copied the environment files, the next step is to create this htaccess file. And what this basically does is that this tells Cloudways that the application that we have right now, which is this one, should redirect all traffic to the Angular application. So what happens when we run the Angular application on server side? It essentially runs on localhost 4000 instead of localhost 4200. So when we run our application on the server, it's going to run on 4000. That's why we are going to create an htaccess file and say rewrite everything to localhost 4000. So all the routes are going to be redirected. So I'm going to copy this now and we are going to go to our Cloudways server. So I'm SSHing still in here, and here I can start creating this .htaccess file. And now I'm going to paste all of this, and you can see this, you can copy this. I'm quickly going to save this now. And now let's have a look at this. So what we need to do here is we need to push the code. So I'm going to go to my code base, go to the tab of my project. And again, this is my computer. This is not the cloud. So here I'm saying ls git status. Here you can see that we have modified the server TS. We have created the deploy sh and the ecosystem config.js. So here I can say git add dot git commit, and here I can say feed, and I can say build, and I can say add deploy script for PM2. And then I just do a git push. On the other side, I'm going to go to Cloudways. I'm going to quickly go and do a pull here. And in the meantime, we are going to go to our server where we are doing SSH. So in here, now if I do ls, we should be able to see deploy script soon. Let's see. Okay, so that's done. Now if I do ls, we already see the deploy sh right here. Good. If I do cat deploy sh, we can see the whole content right here, which means that all we need to do is just run deploy sh and it should be fine. We should also be able to see the htaccess file, which we don't see because it starts with a dot. So I'm going to say ls-la, and here we should be able to see this htaccess file as well. Good. So now I can simply say sh, and here I can say deploy.sh, or I could just simply say deploy.sh or /deploy.sh, and this is going to run npm install. This is going to build our application. It will copy the env file and the service account file, and then it would spin up the server for us. Let's see if this works. Okay, so it tried to build the application and we got an error, and this is an error that I've been getting for a while now. I couldn't find people reporting this issue, so I'm a bit skeptical, but the fix is essentially going into this particular library and then fixing this hex code which is breaking at the moment, or this code. The problem is that since we are running TypeScript in the strict mode, this doesn't really work. So the way to fix that is that you need to go to package.json, and inside here you're gonna go and add some overrides. So I want you to copy paste exactly this thing. So paste it just like this, and I'm going to make sure that this is also mentioned in the markdown documentation or the tutorial. And once you do so, I want you to run npm install, because let's try this this locally at the moment. If I run npm run build, it's going to fail even locally. And there you go. You can see that this fails. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run npm install, and it doesn't really fix that issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do rm-rf node modules and then also package-log.json. And then I'm going to run npm install again. All right, now that npm install is done, I'm going to run npm run build again. And you can see that now we have an issue with CSS. So let's quickly fix that as well. I'm going to go to Angular JSON, and in here, if you go a bit down, you can see that this component style is defined to be maximum warning and maximum error, and the error is on 8 kilobytes. Now in here, you can see that this 8 kilobytes budget is increased and not met by 7.33, which becomes a total of 15.33 kilobytes. Well, in an ideal world, you would basically make that not happen, which means that you need to optimize your CSS files and not have a lot of CSS in one single file. For the sake of demo, I'm just going to fix the issue. So here I'm going to replace this 8 kilobytes with, let's say, 20 kilobytes, and the warning that could be maybe 16 kilobytes, so to say. So I'm going to quickly save this now, and I'm going to try to build this again. So if I run the build again, let's see what happens. Okay, so this time it builds fine, no issues. So what I'm going to do is do git status, quickly do git add dot, and then git commit m fix, and here I can say build, and I can say fix NSI color package and home CSS budget issue. And I'm going to quickly push this now. I'm going to go to Cloudways, quickly do a pull, and now this is deploying. Good. So now that this has been updated, I can go to my code, or actually go to the SSH server, and here I can do ls, and I can actually do a cat of angular.json just to see that the budget has been updated, and you can see that it is. So that means I can just run deploy again. So I'm quickly going to go and say /deploy sh. And this is important because not only I want to fix the build, but also the packages as well. So we need to reinstall the packages now. And you can see that it added 18 packages, removed some, and we have some changes here. So I'm going to say no here, and let's see the build working now. All right, now you can see that the build was done, and then it went ahead trying to stop the smart grocery assistant server, but since there was nothing running, it just said not found, but did not stop the deployment script, did not fail. Then it started the application with PM2, and now you can see that we have the smart grocery assistant application running. What I want you to do once that's done is you can run PM2 logs smart grocery assistant, or just say PM2 logs, and this should show us what happens when the application is running. So here, this is your indication that the app is running fine. If it says Node Express server running on HTTP localhost 4000, if you see that, then that is success. Otherwise, no, we have a problem. So now that we have this running and we also have htaccess set up, I'm wondering if everything actually works. So I'm going to go to the application, and I'm going to go to the production URL. So here, if I click this particular button, let's see what happens. So here you can see it still shows us the PHP stack. I'm wondering if there is an issue with caching. So I'm going to right click, inspect, and then right click the reload button and say empty cache and hard reload. Let's see. Nope. So that didn't work, which means htaccess is not working as it should. So my only guess is to restart the server in order for the htaccess to work. So I'm going to go to the server itself, and I'm going to try to go to quick actions and restart. And restarting takes about 2 to 3 minutes. So just chill, grab a coffee, or have some water. Stay hydrated. All right. So the server has been started now. So I'm going to quickly go to the server details, and I'm going to basically copy the password now because I'm going to SSH again. Because we restarted the server, our connection would have been broken now. You can see automatically here it says connection to this was closed by remote host. Yeah, because we restarted the server. So I'm going to clear this, and I'm going to rerun the command again. So it's SSH, then the username @ and then the IP. Once you do so, you're going to have to give the password, and then I'm going to hit enter, and now I'm in again. So I can do cd applications, and then I can go to the application myself, and then I can do ls. Now we can go to public HTML, and now I can do ls, and I can simply just run the deploy script, or I can try to run PM2 and see if everything looks good. So if I say PM2 logs, nothing really works. If I say node -- version, you're going to see that it still says this 20.5.1, and that is because NVM is not working anymore. If I say NVM, you can see the command doesn't found. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just scroll through up because we already ran a command for NVM. So if I go all the way up, this was the command that we ran before. So export NVM dir home NVM. So make sure to run this first. And the next command that we ran was this exactly. So make sure that you have exactly this running as well, or you can Google it and then just copy paste here. Now if I run nvm, you can see that this runs. If I check the node version, you can see that this works fine as well. And if I run now pm2 list, you can see that pm2 also seems to be working good. So all I need to do is just run the deploy script. So I'm just gonna run deploy sh because there's nothing running at the moment. So it's gonna run npm install, and since we already did that before, it's gonna be faster. It's going to build the application, which should already be there, and then it should be able to just spin it up quickly. All right, so this build actually took some time, but now you can see that the process is running here. I can also go and say pm2 logs smart grocery assistant, and here you can see the logs. So the server is running as well. Now if I go to my browser, and when I restarted the server, I went to the production URL, and you can see that it could not be accessed. I'm wondering if I refresh now, what's gonna happen? And there it is. Your AI powered Angular application is running in front of you. And you know what's amazing? You have 0 downtime deployments right now because we are using Cloudways. You have automatic SSL because this is right now running on HTTPS, and we are using PM2, so this keeps running forever. So even if the server crashes, it's going to restart the process. So it's basically not going to die ever. But let's try this out and actually check if AI is working fine. So if I go here and if I try the same thing, if I go and say chicken breast and hit enter, you can see that the smart suggestions is loading right now, and you can see the smart suggestions are here. I'm able to also add these to the list, and you can see now broccoli is in the list, and we have more smart suggestions coming in as well. Super nice. But as amazed as I am right now on how much we covered in this video, could you tell me if you think it gets easier than this, that you have a whole output of an AI powered application in Angular working with Angular version 20 using signals deployed on Cloudways with 0 downtime, with PM2 running, with easy to deploy configuration where you just push to GitHub, run a deploy script, and everything is up and running. But before we move towards the end of the video, let's recap what we have learned today. We implemented Angular 20 signals, and there were no subscriptions whatsoever in the application using RxJS observables. We also used the new control flow in the code, and you can inspect the code yourself, and you're going to see that we're using the @if, @for, which basically makes the templates, I would say, 50% cleaner. Then we also use the httpResource, which handles errors, has a loading signal in there, and also has a value signal, and everything is signal based. Super nice. Then we also use something that was very subtle, that is using services with the inject function, which makes things much clearer as well compared to the constructor and the private property declarations there. I think the inject one is much preferred among the whole community. Then we also used Google's Genkit, which is like an enterprise AI in 20 lines of code. And then we also saw the smart suggestions having auto categorization, also detecting units as well, and being able to add smart suggestions to the grocery list itself. And again, the complete source code of what we have built right now is available on GitHub. You will find the link in the description of this video. And if you prefer reading, as I followed the markdown tutorial, you can also do exactly the same. And if this helped you understanding Angular 20 a bit, how do we structure, how do we architect an Angular application, how do we communicate when it comes to data flow, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking the bell icon so you don't miss any future AI and Angular tutorials. But before you go, drop a comment in the section on what I should be building next. Maybe we should build something on top of this application, maybe suggesting recipes based on whatever I have in my groceries list. We could maybe also think about meal planning for the whole week, or if I'm going to do groceries in a consistent interval, maybe it can already tell me that I might have run out of eggs by now. And seriously, if you're using observables still for the most part of your applications in 2025, I think it's time to upgrade, because signals are the future. We have signal based forms, we have computed, effect, we have view children, and all of those APIs that you can also learn in my latest book called Mastering Angular Signals. And I intend to keep updating this as the APIs are getting stable. I'm super eager to add signal forms here right now, but we are still experimenting and I don't think it's ready at the moment, but keep an eye on it. And at the end, I just want to tell you, I love building these applications and I hope you do too. So keep learning, keep building. As always, happy coding. I'm gonna see you in the next video.